Having a $148 billion economic impact, corn supports thousands of jobs and strengthens communities across our state. It's advancing cleaner burning biofuels, expanding plant-based manufacturing, and growing a renewable economy. Illinois corn isn't just an agricultural success, it's a strategic investment in energy, innovation, and economic growth. See what's possible at ilcorn.org.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this hour of the Shaun Thompson Show is sponsored exclusively by DonleyAuctions.com. They need your guns. Sell for top dollar. DonleyAuctions.com.
From the streets of Melrose Park to the trading floor of the Merc, he's fought for every dollar he's ever earned. And now, with personal liberty and our system of capitalism under assault in America, he's here to seize back our rights from the government. With a cigar in one hand and a copy of the Declaration of Independence in the other, he's Shaun Thompson. And this is the Shaun Thompson Show.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Ooh, they're red, white, and blue.
I am very excited to talk to our next guest. Not because I have seen the new documentary. I have not. But it's well known for a long time that only the people who have lived under the iron fist of collectivism understand the beauty of America. The people who have fought to get to the youngest, the richest, and the highest quality of life of any country understand the beauty of it and fight for it tirelessly. My next guest is one of those people, born in Odessa, the Soviet Union, migrated to New York, thank God, with her family in 1977. The Bee Gees were on tour. 1977, a great time. Mother of two, she is somebody who became a leading voice for reopening New York public schools during the fascistic, communist, Nazi takeover of our education system. But it really didn't start with COVID. It started many, many years, maybe since the inception of it. She's the co-founder and executive director of Restore Childhood, a nonprofit dedicated to protecting children, education, health, and development through evidence-based information, which makes her persona non grata where politicians are. Producer and director of Uncancelable. She is the new documentary that talks about a public school mom who took on Alvin Bragg. She is Natalya Murakhver, and I probably butchered your last name. How are you, Natalya?
I'm well, thank you. Yeah, you did a great job. It's Murakhver, but you came very, very close.
All right. Well, I have to tell you, I have admiration. I've been lucky enough to be old. I'm lucky enough to remember the Cold War. I'm lucky enough to remember the hybrid communism, Marxism of the Soviet Union and the devastation it delivered to tens of millions of wonderful people, and some of whom were lucky to come here. Gone is that patriotism of my own countrymen. And I love the idea that it's people who understand it that fight for it. That's how I view you and what you've done throughout your life.
Thank you. I agree with you. And if it's gone, that patriotism, it didn't just disappear organically. It's been systematically destroyed. And that's really just very sad. I mean, it's something I've kind of come to realize over the past year or two, that this didn't happen organically, but it's been a real focused effort.
Well, Natalya, I'm sure you saw the American gangster government Marxist in drag called Barack Obama, and this constant talk by this new American Marxist mafia member calling himself a Democrat of the collective. And it reminds me of the Soviet Union. The collective, collectively, we are going to have this wonderful time, just another 5-year plan, more bulldog, more fraud, more promises of utopia. This is exactly what your family left, isn't it?
Yes, and that's what we find ourselves in New York City now, 2026.
And what I love is the similarities between the gods in the Politburo, the gods in the Soviet Union. They're in the same positions they've always been. They're the mayors. They're the parasite politician. They're the so-called enforcement of justice. And that's really what your new documentary is about. It's about Alvin Bragg, an unqualified, out-of-shape dimwit who really is good for nothing other than enforcing government tyranny, isn't he?
I like that description. Haven't heard that one yet, but yes, I think that's right.
So tell me about this woman who actually had a little a relationship with the government. She was a defendant or a defense attorney, wasn't she?
Yeah, she worked for the Legal Aid Society for 20 years. So it's a public defense position. So she was, as progressive as they came And in fact, she considered herself a Bernie bro, which, I mean, that's a line I would have never crossed. So that's how far left she was. That was until 2020. Everything changed for her in 2020 when, after George Floyd and when the schools were closed, she was a school board member here in New York City on the, in Manhattan's Upper East Side and downtown CEC2, which is the largest school board in Manhattan. And the first thing that happened was that there was this push to remove merit-based education in New York City schools, and that's happening everywhere. You're in Illinois. I'm sure you're seeing a lot of it as well. Remove gifted and talented programs, testing, anything that would, show how far behind our children have fallen. And she supported the, advanced classes and gifted and talented in screen schools. And during one of the school board meetings, which was on Zoom because everything was remote at the time, so it was also recorded, they were discussing whether they would, scrap merit-based schools. And a white dad who was in support of keeping the schools and in support of merit education had his friend's baby over at his house, and it was a black baby. And during the meeting when they were discussing all this, the baby happened to sit on his lap and was in camera shot. And the white woke activists on that call lost their minds. They immediately projected onto him that he was manipulating them and that he was a racist and that he was using this black child to further his segregation agenda. And it became a huge viral moment that, got national news attention and an article in The Atlantic. And Maude got herself in trouble immediately because she refused to condemn the white dad. And,
are you kidding me?
Yeah, and she was ostracized, and they were forcing her to get off the board, and just treated her really badly. The black attorneys at Legal Aid also turned on her because, in addition to that, she had also written an op-ed in the New York Post that talked about how the school board members were being trained in culturally responsive education, which is equity, all the stuff that you were talking about. It's just there are a lot of nice words, but it's all the same thing. And so she was pushed out of her job. She ultimately did keep her role on the school board for a few more years. And that was kind of like the beginning of her, journey.
Well, what's fascinating, first of all, I'd like to get this out of the way so there's no question. I hate white people. I hate white communists. I hate white socialists. I hate white Marxists. Karl Marx was white. Hate him. And it's funny to see how self-loathing so many people are and how fearful they are to enunciate the benefits of America. I mean, after all, we're the country that produced the first female black millionaire. And that was only 16 years after slavery. Her name is Pleasant. She went to California. The first female millionaire is a black woman in this country. And when you look at the advances of the American black, if you put the American black millionaires together, they would be the American black millionaires. They would be the fourth richest country in the world. And yet there are still people who think that because of someone's color of the skin, they need your help. This is something that I find ridiculous. It's a certain level, a low standard of IQ that really is more evident of a self-loathingness than it is reality. Don't you feel that way?
I think in part it's that. I think it's really been nurtured in this country through, these liberation ideologies and at the framing of all education as, oppressed, oppressor, colonizer, colonized. So, I mean, unfortunately, it's the framework in which this generation has been raised in.
Yeah.
So it's deeply concerning because it's not new.
No. And how many white Russians killed white Russians during the Soviet Union years? Or how about how many Chinese killed Chinese? I mean, the list goes on. But it's funny how we're victims of racism rather than understanding. It is only the political ideology that leads to mayhem, hopelessness, murder, and chaos in a nation, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And also just teaching people that they're victims. I mean, it's thoroughly disempowering. It's telling you that, you are not in control of your destiny and that you have to live with this horrible white guilt. I mean, Shelby Steele has written about this for years. Yeah, I've learned a lot from him and his son Eli Steele. They have a new
Yes.
movie coming out called White Guilt based on Dad's book. But it's a terrible thing to convince people. I mean, look at what's happening in England, right, and Ireland.
Yeah,
The police are no longer responsive to crimes and to actual actions. They're more about identity politics, and all mayhem has broken loose. There, you've got a country of vigilantes now.
Yes. Well, that's where I would be. I would be right out there smoking a cigar, kicking everyone's ass. But, Natalya, this is because I don't like the idea that we are supposed to be victims of policy from government to tell us how to judge, to tell us how to act. I'm one of those stubborn Americans. And you know where I was taught that primarily was both in my house, but mainly in school. That's the crux of the issue. It's the schools that reinforce communism, socialism, and fascism that we all lived through during COVID that I know I underestimated. I didn't think that many people would take it. I'm curious to know what you and your family thought, especially the family that was alive and came here from the Soviet Union. Were they in awe at how easily Americans rolled over and became Soviets?
You mean during COVID, during the pandemic?
Yes.
Well, I didn't come here with a lot of family. It was just me and my parents. And I have to say that, in the early 2020 during COVID, I was deeply concerned for them. The thing that was true about the virus was that it was age stratified, and they were in their 80s. So there was the concern for them. But with regard to how quickly our civil liberties fell away, I mean, for sure, that was something that I was pretty keenly, aware of pretty early. And in fact, I was one of the open schools parents, like you said, even in a deeply unpopular place, blue New York City, most parents just rolled over and went along with it. So, yeah, for me, I could sense that the things that my parents had talked to me about all those years ago that I kind of dismissed as history were coming to pass again. And in fact, in New York State, our governor, Kathy Hochul, almost passed a law that would have given the state government authority to put people in internment camps.
That's amazing.
If they decided you were contagious or infected with any virus, they'd have the authority to come in, bring you into this space, your family too, and keep you there until they felt it was safe to release you. And I spoke to the lawyer who challenged that in New York State, and she said the only reason that they were able to win the case was because the judge asked Kathy Hochul's lawyers or Tish James's lawyers, well, if someone is put in a situation like that and they're in this place they can't get out, how do they get out? And the answer was the lawyer was just kind of stunned. It didn't really have an answer, and they said, well, I guess they find an attorney. And it was like, that can't be the only way out.
No.
That can't be. So anyway, I mean, they're still trying to pass that. So yes, of course. And in fact, I think just to answer your question, my friend group changed quite a bit during the 2020s and to now, and I do have a lot more friends who are former Soviet and other immigrants from totalitarian countries, because I have far more in common with them now than I did before.
Well, this is the beauty and the silver lining in what we all live through. And the thing I hate government because I had to make money. I was poor, right? And when you start to make money and you realize they're stealing your money and they're telling you it's good for you, I don't like that unless you come to my house and kick my ass. But so I've always been suspicious. And then I was a student for how these once great nations like Russia before the Soviet Union, how did this happen? How did it happen in China? How does it happen in Germany before the Hugo Boss suits and the rest of it? And it's always the three tenets of Marxism or communism, right? It's fear, obligation, and guilt. And once governments start to wield that as a weapon, and you as an American who walk around with that certain arrogance of, we're a free country, land of the free, home of the brave, law is my shield, not their spear. We were the perfect setup for what we saw in COVID. But I do think that the lies that it was built on, the failures and promises that the government made us, and the catastrophic destruction to our education system, I think this is the beginning of a recovery. and a rebirth. And I'm wondering, because you've done a couple documentaries. Your first documentary was on transvestites. I don't call them transgender because you're really not going to change anything. I like a transvestite, as the birdcage, a lot of fun, some dancing, perhaps some singing. But these ones were very serious and there was danger. So you've watched this. I feel like we're in the beginning of a rebirth of Americanism. Do you feel that way?
I'd like to think so. Just one small thing. The previous documentary was actually on the COVID school closures.
Oh.
It's called 15 Days, and it's about the COVID school closures, and features Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, who's the head of the NIH now, and was the author of the Great Barrington Declaration. So I actually haven't done a documentary on trans.
Oh, that must be somebody else I got. But in case you want to, feel free to call it trans testicles or transvestites. Don't be afraid to use that.
Okay. But a rebirth of Americanism, I'd like to think that's true. I mean, living in New York, I'm not necessarily seeing a lot of American flags. I see far more.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I see, cities in New Jersey or Michigan raising a Hamas or a Palestinian or a Hezbollah flag, and I wonder, what does the rebirth of Americanism look like? I'd like to see more of it. I certainly think President Trump has done an incredible job of giving Americans a reason to feel proud of our country. But, I think it remains to be seen.
Well, I'm loving this secession by foot movement. I really am, not just because I partook in it. My show is out of Chicago, but I left. And it's funny, my neighbors where I live, you know where they are from? New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, really, California. In fact, Gavin Newsom's in-laws live less than a mile from me. So it's fascinating to watch. And you know what else is fascinating to watch? The way in which these states that are run well, how they're not just accepting these transplants, but how these transplants are thriving, and the businesses that are opening, and the lack of retail. When I come back to Chicago, which I am right now, and you drive through your old neighborhood, it's destruction and chaos, empty storefronts. Is New York like that, or have they been able to have the lipstick on the facade of collectivism?
It's, I live in a very busy part of Manhattan that tends to be kind of mostly thriving or appears to be thriving, but the streets are really dirty, and the level of spontaneous, unpredictable crime is really what I think is the most concerning thing, because, I grew up in New York in the 70s, and there were neighborhoods you wouldn't go into, or you wouldn't go on the subway at night. You could kind of predict it, and you knew, this is a risky behavior, this is a pretty safe one. And unfortunately, with the level of unpredictability and the level of mental illness that was created during the pandemic, in addition to all the illegal, violent offenders that were welcomed into this country by the Biden administration, it's a tough place to be at this point.
And it was so beautiful. I mean, I was lucky enough to go in the early 2000s, but I had worked in a place where I talked to guys from New York all the time. And we would talk to them. I became friends with them. And it was just like Chicago, and we used to joke around. The only thing different is the pizza and the rest of it. But same thing in Chicago. It has become, they devolve into third worlds. I mean, that's really what you're describing. You're describing a third world.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there was a shelter up until about a year ago around the corner from, where I live on the Upper West Side. And it was intentional. The first few, I thought, well, I by the way, I'm still a registered Democrat because I was a Democrat who voted for Obama. So I definitely, came over to the other side. But, I've remained a Democrat in New York City because you can't vote in the primaries unless you're a Democrat, because the Republicans generally don't even have a chance.
It's like Chicago.
And you're trying to vote for the least bad Democrat, which is a horrible thing to do. It's like unconscionable, but there you go, you do it. I mean, I had to vote for Cuomo for mayor, which made me want to throw up. But I mean, it's been really bad. They put these shelters, or at least they had, up until like a year or two ago, there were shelters all over Manhattan. I think they're still pushing SROs into, the Upper East Side, neighborhoods that really shouldn't have anything like this. They're doing it on purpose to make them uninhabitable. And as you said, yes, for sure, third world countries.
And Natalya, it goes to show you can compromise with someone you love, right? You can compromise with your husband. You can compromise with your kids. You can compromise with your friend. But you can never compromise with the wrong answer. You can't. You can just agree to be wrong. And then before you know it, you're doing that thing that so many Chicagoans, I hear this all the time, the lesser of two evils. Well, that's not good enough, and I love the idea that the examples are so stark because it used to be you could blend in this kind of hybrid gangster government Marxism in Chicago. They were able to hide for a little bit. What I think is the beauty of COVID and what we saw, there were areas that rejected all of it. And those are the areas where the quality of life was higher, where the businesses thrived. That's why I feel there's a resurgence. And, through this documentary that you've done, I'm curious to know what your opinion is now of a system set up to really work against individuals. And Alvin Bragg represents that, but so does the whole justice system in New York and Chicago and California. That's where, if we can loosen that foothold, we can maybe take back these areas. Do you feel that way?
Of course. I mean, yes, if there are consequences, for crimes, there'll be great deterrence. But I just, it doesn't seem like the Republicans can mount an effective opposition to, the established progressive, blue, which is shifting further and further to the left.
So what are you looking for? A 3-bedroom, 3-bath? I'm also a real estate broker in Southwest Florida. What do you say you come move by me?
Yeah, maybe, we'll be visiting Florida again this summer. I don't know. It's hard to leave New York because New York is magical in that you can walk to anything. And, we have really great neighborhoods. I've lived there for almost my entire life. So it would be a huge decision to leave. And also because we stayed during COVID and fought for the schools and fought against the masks and fought against the mandates. I mean, it's just like, when is the fight not worth it anymore?
I love it. I love it. Listen, I hear this all the time. I get it. And there are people too who cannot leave for a multitude of different reasons. So I love the fact you're doing it. Where's the best place to take a look at the new documentary, Uncancelable?
It's Uncancelable, and it's on Real Clear Media. They have it on their YouTube channel, and you can just Google Uncancelable and Real Clear Media, and it'll pop right up.
Natalya, thank you so much. I look forward to go through this. And are your parents are still with us?
Thank God, yes, 87 and 85.
You tell them I am so proud of them. Really, I love this story. I love it. And they know exactly what we've been through, and I'm so glad they got you here to do what you've done. So thank you for making time to join me. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. We'll be back with your calls and comments.
He believes in freedom, capitalism, and individual liberty. And because of that, he's become an enemy of the state. He's Shaun Thompson, and this is The Shaun Thompson Show on AM 560. The Answer.
The following contains a celebrity impersonation.
Mr. President, we're seeing reporting that air conditioning systems are failing as temperatures rise. What is your response?
I said, don't wait. People wait until the last second, then suddenly it's hot and nothing works. I understand this stuff, probably better than anybody.
Mr. President, why hasn't the White House issued any guidance?
I gave perfect guidance. Call Air Right Heating and Cooling. That's the guidance. If people followed it, we wouldn't even be talking about this.
Sir, but homeowners have so many HVAC options.
They're not like Air Right. You got some bad installers out there, some real bad hombres. I wouldn't let them near the White House. It would be a complete disaster.
Mr. President, there are reports of significant rebates on new systems. Can you confirm?
I've heard about them. A lot of people talking about them. If you miss out, you'd have to be really not so smart. Tremendous savings, let me tell you.
Visit Air Right Heating and Cooling at AIR-RITE.com. Air Right, doing it right since 1959.
Patrick was way behind on his IRS taxes.
I was in way over my head. The total amount ended up being somewhere just over $30,000. $30,000.
Then the IRS came to collect.
Started getting letter after letter. A lien had been filed against me. They were going to basically hang me completely out to dry.
He had to do something.
That's when I reached out to Optima Tax Relief.
Patrick's life quickly got a lot easier.
It was very easy, pretty much hands off. They picked up the ball and ran with it.
And how'd it go?
I couldn't believe it. I had to ask 2 or 3 times. I saved an incredible amount of money.
How does Patrick feel about Optima?
Couldn't be happier. They definitely helped me, Optima Tax Relief.